Hi, my name is Keith Mays. I'm the mayor of Sherwood, Oregon, and the 2021 League of Oregon Cities president. It is my honor and pleasure to lead the LOC, a statewide organization built to support and respond to the needs of all 241 Oregon cities. As an officer on the board of directors, one of my goals has been to ensure that participation on the board remains reflective of the entire state, that all municipalities and city officials are given an equal voice on the board. To that end, I'm proud to support 5 amendments to the LOC Constitution, each of which on their own ensures the board of directors remains a truly representative and statewide governing body. The amendments will be voted on during the LOC annual business meeting scheduled for Friday, October 22nd of this year. The LOC General Counsel, Patty Mulvihill, will briefly explain each of the proposed amendments, and then members of the LOC Board of Directors, LOC Bylaws Committee, and the Equity and Inclusion Committee will explain why they are supportive of the proposed amendments. Take it away, Patty.
Thank you, Mayor Mays. The first proposed amendment recommends a significant change to the leadership structure of the Board of Directors. Currently, the governing structure of the board, and you can see that in the visual on the left with the blue triangle, the current structure is such that a treasurer is going to serve a one-year term, and then they automatically ascend to the position of vice president, where they serve a one-year term. Then they go up to the president position, where they serve a one-year term. And then they conclude as immediate past president, again serving a one-year term. So when you're elected treasurer right now, you actually have a 4-year commitment to the board. The board's proposing we change that particular leadership structure, and you'll see this exemplified with the green triangle. What the board is proposing is that the treasurer position come out of the automatic line of ascension and become its own separately elected 2-year position. And then what will happen is the membership will vote for a vice president who will serve a 1-year term. The vice president will automatically ascend to the president, serving a 1-year term, and then automatically become the immediate past president, serving a 1-year term, which means that when you sign up to be vice president, you're committing to a 3-year term as opposed to the current 4-year commitment. Councilor Tania Browning of Central Point, the LOC's current vice president, as well as Councilor Beach Pace of Hillsborough, an LOC board director, will now provide you the reasons they support this amendment. Councilor Browning and Councilor Pace.
I support the change for 2 reasons. It will allow the treasurer's position to focus for 2 years on the LOC finance through the budget process and into the next year implementation. It will provide continuity of services and allow that particular person in that position to engage fully. At the same time, it will allow the president position to focus on leading without the distraction of numbers. While we all agree when we are elected to our positions for our cities that we are the stewards of our finances, let's be honest, not everyone who loves to serve loves finance, and not everyone who loves to lead loves numbers. So we want to make sure at the League of Oregon Cities that there's a space for everyone to lead. Whether you love numbers or you love leadership, you can serve at the League of Oregon Cities.
I support the amendment related to the treasurer position for a few reasons. Number one, the position of treasurer is a very specific role. You want somebody who understands finances to be in that role. And I like the idea of having a treasurer in there for 2 years because that provides some stability regarding finances. The next thing is that the vice president and president are also very specific roles and frankly, very different than the treasurer role. So if somebody wants to run for those positions, they can do that without having to go through the treasurer gauntlet, so to speak. The other thing is the time commitment. If somebody was interested in treasurer or interested in president or vice president, they have to commit to 4 years and all of those positions. Whereas if they were just going to do treasurer, they could do it for 2 years. Or if they wanted to do vice president and past president, they could do it in 2 or 3 years. So it's a little bit more, frankly, inclusive of people who only have so much time. And they don't have to make a 4-year commitment in order to serve in just one of those roles. So it's a little bit more malleable and more inclusive for the people who may want to run for those 2 different roles.
The second proposed amendment recommends ensuring that each of the state's 12 regions is always represented on our board of directors. If you look at the visual, you'll see a map that has 12 specific regions of the state outlined on it. What the purpose of this amendment is to make sure is that there's at least a representative on the board of directors from all 12 regions. The board's recommending that we add a new provision to the LOC Constitution, which will allow the president and the LOC nominating committee to appoint persons from member cities of unrepresented regions to serve in a non-voting capacity on the board of directors. What's going to happen is after each annual meeting, when it's known who will serve as officers and directors on the board in the upcoming year, LOC staff will work with the president to identify if any of the regions in the state are unrepresented on the board. If there are regions which will not be represented by either a voting or non-voting board member, the president will convene the nominating committee to identify one individual who holds an elected position with a member city from each of the unrepresented regions to serve as a non-voting director. So if we would pretend that next year in 2022, we had what you'll see the graph there on your right, we had people from regions of everywhere except regions 10 and 12. What would happen is the president would convene the nominating committee and he would tell the nominating committee, you need to identify an elected official from both Region 10 and Region 12 to join the board of directors in 2022 to serve in a non-voting capacity. By doing that, the president and therefore the board would ensure that there's always a representative from each of the 12 regions of the state on the board of directors, providing feedback and comment on how the league should be run, its goals, its priorities, and what it should be care about. Mayor Dave Drotzman of Hermiston, a current LOC Equity and Inclusion Committee member, as well as Happy Valley Councilor David Amami, a current LOC Bylaws Committee member, will provide the reasons why they support this amendment. Mayor Drotzman and Councilor Amami.
I'm in support of the recommended amendment to the LOC Constitution that requires the board to always have a member from each of the LOC's 12 regions represented on the board, at the very least in a non-voting capacity. Our state is large and very diverse in geography, environment, economy, culture, and politically. Each region often has very different needs and expectations of the LOC than other regions of the state. So to make sure each region always has an equitable seat at the table, the current board is proposing this amendment. The question that should be asked is why not require the board to have a representative from each region? That's difficult for two reasons. They don't often get a volunteer to run from each region. And two, it would require a unanimous approval of all 241 cities to amend their 190 agreements with the LOC. So the compromise was made to expand the board with appointed non-voting members by a constitutional amendment, which only requires a 2/3 vote at the annual meeting. Upon approval, hopefully those new appointed members would transition to elected members of the board in the future. It's a great compromise on the LOC board's part to try and find an equitable solution and make sure all regions of the state are heard at the board level. Please join me in voting yes for this amendment.
As a proud member of the League of Oregon Cities Bylaws Committee and newly formed People of Color Caucus, I fully support the proposed amendment that ensures each region of the state is always represented on the LOC Board of Directors. One goal of the LOC People of Color Caucus is to ensure that those of us in leadership positions who have often been underrepresented or overlooked have an equal say in the future of this organization. This goal is being realized as the League has allowed members from the People of Color Caucus to serve on each and every committee so that we are able to help shape the future of not only our cities, but the entire state of Oregon. I believe representation matters, and when applying this same philosophy to the proposed amendment, it's a great solution to make sure that no matter who you are, how long you've been in office, and where you're from, with the LOC, you will always have a fair opportunity to have your voice heard. In my opinion, dividing the state into 12 distinct regions will help the LOC achieve its goal to ensure that every city in our fine state is always represented on the board. Whether you live in a small city or large, Northern Oregon or Southern Oregon, or all places in between, this proposed amendment will help ensure that everyone has a seat at the table. Thank you so much, Board of Directors, for all you do to help our cities, and I hope that you're all staying safe and doing well.
The third amendment will define the term appointed in the Constitution and do so in a way that two things occur. First, it will allow for cities that are being led by recorders, as opposed to city managers or city administrators, to serve on the board of directors. The board believes that the term appointed should apply to a city's chief executive officer. And while many medium and large cities in Oregon would consider their CEO to be either a city manager or a city administrator, smaller cities in Oregon do not typically have a city manager or a city administrator. Rather, what they have as an administrative head is their city recorder. And so, to ensure that the true chief executive officer of each city has an equal opportunity to serve on the board of directors, the board believes the term appointed should be defined to mean any person who has been appointed by a city council and holds the title of city manager or city administrator. If a member city does not have a position titled city manager or city administrator, the city recorder, provided they are appointed to their position by the city council, also constitutes an appointed position. And if you look at the visual, you'll see what we're actually trying to do. Currently, you can serve on the board of directors if you're a city manager or a city administrator. What the proposed amendment does is expand that to include a city recorder, provided the recorder's been appointed by the council and their city doesn't have the position of city administrator or city manager. The second thing this amendment's going to do is it will allow for past presidents to continue their service on the board if they are still representing a city in either an elected official capacity or an appointed official capacity. Let's look at the visual. What you'll see with the blue circles is that right now, to serve as a past president on the board of directors, you have to have been a former LOC president and a current elected official with a member city. What we're doing is proposing the green circles. So to be a past president, you have to still be a former LOC president, but now you can either be an elected official with a member city or an appointed official with a member city. This is going to allow us to expand who can continue to be a past president on the board of directors. Now, Councilor Candy Conga-Pakar, a councilor member from Metolius and a member of the LOC's Equity and Inclusion Committee, is going to provide the reasons why she supports this amendment. Councilor Conga-Pakar.
As a member of the City Council for almost 5 years in the small city of Metolius, I have personally experienced and witnessed the crucial role of our city recorder. The city recorder manages the daily operations and ensures proper administration of codes and regulations. He or she plans, organizes, and coordinates activities involving staff meetings, council meetings, and any other local community events. In other words, the city recorders are de facto city managers or city administrators. Secondly, let us investigate what the League of Oregon Cities or LOC data suggest. Well, number one, small cities account for 74% of all LOC members. Number two, 34% of all LOC members are cities with a population of 1,000 or less. So, if the LOC excluded city recorders in those cities without city administrators or city managers from meeting the definition of appointed, that would essentially mean excluding those cities' chief administrative officers from serving in the LOC board of directors. Case in point, of the 81 cities with a population of 1,000 or less, only 12 are managed by city managers. That means the other 69 cities, which comprise 85% of the LOC membership, are managed by a city recorder. With this information in mind, let's ask ourselves, how do we accelerate equity and inclusion in the League of Oregon Cities? Whose voice do we need at the table? We need the voice of our city recorders. Thank you.
The final constitutional amendment being proposed will allow the board to hold its meetings in any manner that allows participants to simultaneously hear and speak to one another. While the Constitution presently permits the board to meet via in-person or phone conference, and platforms like Zoom can constitute a phone conference, the board does not wish to limit the manner in which it may meet, provided the medium used by the board is open and accessible to all. To that end, the board recommends that the Constitution be amended in relevant part to read as follows. The board may hold any meeting by or through the use of any means of communication allowing all participants to simultaneously hear and speak to one another. So if you look at the visual, what the board's trying to accomplish with this amendment is to say it can meet in person, it can meet via the telephone, it can meet via the computer, or there's some new technological advance that happens in 3 years that we haven't even thought of yet, but would still allow for board members to have an actual, honest, simultaneous conversation. They want to make sure that the Constitution is written in such a way that we can have a meeting in any of those types of situations. Counselor Drew Farmer of Coos Bay, a current LOC board director, will provide the reasons why he supports this amendment. Counselor Farmer.
This is an important option to make our remote communities more engaged. I live about 4 hours from Salem myself. Not saying I've never made that trip in one day to and from, but I didn't feel I gave that meeting my best. Some other folks may have medical issues that prevent them from traveling, and we still want to have them engaged. Last year, I had about a month where I wasn't able to drive for a medical reason. This amendment would allow more folks experiencing situations like that to remain engaged in the process, even though travel may not be an option. Of course, it's Oregon as well, and we've got every form of weather that exists in the world, so weather can also preclude us from travel. This is a simple amendment. It allows more folks to be engaged in the League of Oregon Cities process who otherwise might not be able to. And I'd like to encourage everyone to be in favor of this amendment.
On behalf of the Board of Directors, I want to thank the following persons for helping me explain the proposed constitutional amendments and why they deserve to be adopted by the LOC membership. Councilor Tanea Browning of Central Point, Councilor Beach Pace of Hillsborough, Mayor Dave Drotzman of Hermiston, Councilor David Amani of Happy Valley, Councilor Candy Kenga Pikar of Metolius, and Councilor Drew Farmer of Coos Bay. As the LOC president, I want each of Oregon's 241 cities to have an equal opportunity to be an active participant on the board of directors. Additionally, I joined the board because I believe the LOC board serves its members best when it is comprised of board members from across the entire state, from cities of all sizes, and from cities with urban, suburban, and rural characteristics. I believe the proposed constitutional amendments go a long way towards ensuring the board of directors will be truly reflective of the state as a whole and open to all 241 member cities. I encourage each member city to review the proposed constitutional amendments in depth. Additionally, I ask each member city to please vote in support of the various amendments. If you have any questions about the specific amendments or about the process involved in voting on the amendments, please contact LOC's General Counsel, Patty Mulvihill. Patty's contact info is available on the LOC website at www.orcities.org. Again, orcities.org. Thank you, and please vote in support of all 5 constitutional amendments during the annual business meeting on Friday, October 22nd.